We came here to fight for our constituents. We came here to lift up the issues of people who are suffering. 6 people died in Nashville at the Covenant School. 3 were 9 years old. But instead of focusing on that, Representative Jones, Representative Johnson, and myself are being expelled from the State House because we said we cannot do business as usual. No one should be wanting to operate as though this is not happening, as though we are not living in a gun violence epidemic in the state of Tennessee. And the solutions that are being offered is actually to reduce the First Amendment rights of people who speak up on behalf of their constituencies, who speak up on behalf of people who are tired of the guns, who are tired of seeing legislation being passed that lowers the age for you to carry, tired of seeing legislation being passed that says you don't need a permit, tired of legislation being passed that says if we give teachers guns, that's somehow going to fix the problem. People are tired of these non-real solutions to a real problem that we are suffering from.
Hello and welcome to What the F*** Just Happened Today, your essential guide to the daily shock and awe in national politics. I'm Joe Amditis. Let's get to it. It's Thursday, April 6th, 2023. Welcome to day 807. Supreme Court Justice Clarence Thomas accepted secret luxury vacations from a Republican megadonor for more than 2 decades without disclosing it. The trips were funded by Harlan Crow, a real estate billionaire and Republican Party donor who treated Thomas and his wife, Ginny Thomas, to luxury vacations, stays at his properties and private resort, and free travel on his private jet and super yacht. Thomas did not disclose that travel on his annual financial disclosure forms, which appears to violate a federal law mandating top officials from the 3 branches of government, including the Supreme Court, file annual forms detailing their finances, outside income, and their spouse's sources of income. Judges are prohibited from accepting gifts from anyone with business before the court, and until a month ago, the judicial branch had not defined an exemption for gifts considered personal hospitality. Senator Dick Durbin, the second highest-ranking Democrat in the Senate and the chairman of the Judiciary Committee, said that Thomas's actions were simply inconsistent with the ethical standards the American people expect of any public servant, let alone a justice on the Supreme Court. Durbin added, "The highest court in the land shouldn't have the lowest ethical standards." Congresswoman Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, meanwhile, called on Thomas to be impeached, saying this is beyond party or partisanship. This degree of corruption is shocking, almost cartoonish. Meanwhile, the Supreme Court refused to reinstate a West Virginia law barring transgender girls from playing on girls' sports teams at school. West Virginia's 2021 law, known as the Save Women's Sports Act, was challenged by a 12-year-old middle school transgender girl and her parents to allow her to continue running on her middle school cross-country and track teams. The Supreme Court was not considering the ban on the merits, but instead addressed whether the law should remain on hold while legal proceedings continue in lower courts. Justices Samuel Alito and Clarence Thomas dissented, saying that they would have granted the request to immediately reinstate the ban on transgender girls participating in school sports teams that are consistent with their gender identity. Some 19 states have already enacted laws similar to West Virginia's in the last 3 years. At the same time, the Biden administration proposed new regulations that would make it illegal for schools to broadly ban transgender students from sports teams. Under the proposal, blanket or categorical bans on all transgender athletes would not be allowed, but schools would be allowed to bar transgender athletes from participating in competitive high school and college sports for fairness in competition. Schools that want to limit participation by transgender athletes would have to consider the sport, the level of competition, and the grade or education level involved before moving ahead with the ban. Meanwhile, in Idaho, the state's Republican governor signed a bill into law making it illegal to help a pregnant minor get an abortion in another state. The new abortion trafficking law, as it's known, is the first of its kind in the United States, and it makes helping a minor obtain abortion pills or cross state lines to get an abortion without parental consent punishable by 2 to 5 years in prison. Anyone who is convicted could also be sued by the minor's parent or guardian. Abortion has been banned at all stages of pregnancy in Idaho. And over in Tennessee, Republican lawmakers expelled the first of 3 Democratic legislators from the state house for leading a protest calling for gun reform, the first partisan expulsion in the state's modern history. Representatives Gloria Johnson, Justin Jones, and Justin Pearson violated House decorum rules by using a bullhorn on the House floor to lead a protest, and they spoke without being formally recognized. In the first vote, the legislature voted 72 to 25 to oust Jones, with the votes on expelling the other 2 lawmakers expected to follow soon.
That's what's being lost today. And so every Tennessean needs to be very concerned that we are not in a democracy. And across the United States of America, there has been no House members who have ever been expelled for exercising their First Amendment rights in a peaceful protest. This is a first in American history. And we are losing our democracy to white supremacy. We are losing our democracy to patriarchy. We are losing our democracy to people who want to keep a status quo that is damning to the rest of us and damning to our children and unborn people. It is no coincidence that the 2 youngest black lawmakers in the state of Tennessee and 1 or 2 women are on trial today. That is not accidental. This is what happens when you lose democracy. This is what we are fighting against and must stand up against as legislators and as people and as citizens across this country, because it's starting in Tennessee, but it won't end here.
The trio of lawmakers represent the 3 largest cities in Tennessee. And finally, the International Monetary Fund warned that its outlook for global economic growth over the next 5 years is the weakest in more than 3 decades. The world economy is expected to grow by less than 3% this year, down from the 3.4% growth last year, making it the lowest medium-term growth forecast since 1990. The IMF's managing director said there is simply no way that interest rates would go up so much after being low for so long and there would be no vulnerabilities. Something is going to go boom. She added that slower growth would be a severe blow, making it even harder for low-income nations to catch up, and said that as a result, poverty and hunger could further increase, a dangerous trend that was started by the COVID-19 crisis. And in the polls, CNN says 32% of Americans say Biden deserves to be re-elected as president, down 5 points since December. That's all for now. You can find the links and sources for all of these stories on the main website. And as always, visit whatthefjusthappenedtoday.com for the latest news and headlines. Until next time, I'm Joe Anditas.
Wait a minute. Logan Roy is not a family man. Ward Cleaver is a family man.
No, you got to watch the show very carefully. He actually loves those kids. It's just this whole narcissistic web that he's put those kids into. And Mr. Trump ran the Trump Organization with his children. He ran the reality.